Track 6. Life of the Party. Lance hums to himself. Toneless. Stumbling along the ghost of a melody he barely remembers. The slim neck of the bottle is smooth beneath his fingertips. It's a sensation he focuses on, convinced that if he doesn't, he'll lose his wavering grip on it altogether. There's still several shots worth swirling around the bottom. It'd be a waste to let the bottle shatter. Waste not, want not, and all that ish. The music still thrums through the building. The pounding bass a familiar heartbeat throughout the club. He can feel it pulsing through the soles of his boots as he stumbles across the room, picking his way as carefully as he can when his own vision is dragging and his head is swimming. Bodies litter the floor, draped haphazardly across the furniture. Couches and tables alike. Not even the pool table is safe. Some of them are still awake. Still conscious. They shift. Writhe. Voices slurred and muffled by their own tongues. Most are unmoving. Bodies and minds heavy and leaden. Smoke fills the room in a haze. Lazy drifting clouds that hang suspended in the still air, catching the light and creating translucent shapes. Disturbed and swirling as he passes through them. It's one of the upper rooms at their club. Above everything. A bigger room separated from the club itself. More secure. With its own bar. A meeting room. A place for more private parties. A place for them to securely let clients try out new products. A place for their gang to gather and for new recruits to make an impression on the paladins. A place where the party is all business. Not that it stops anyone from getting uffed up. That's part of the business, after all. And once upon a time, he was the life of the party. He supposes he still is, given that he's the only one still up and moving. He picks his way over the bodies. Around all these people passed out on the floor of the room. He doesn't know half of them, but they all want to know him. He's a paladin. The blue paladin. The sharpshooter. One of the inner circle. One of Allura's closest friends and confidants. An original paladin. A founder of this whole thing. He's the life of the party. He makes his way to the bar, nearly tripping over someone and stumbling into one of the stools before haphazardly climbing up onto it. He plants the bottle firmly on the bar top, the sharp sound muted by his own swimming head and the pulse of music below him. The music will continue all night. The club will remain open, lights flashing and air humid with sweat, until daybreak. Like the rest of the city, Voltron goes still at dawn. Those around him may be too uffed up to continue, but he'll go until the sun rises. He'll be the life of the party. There's no bartender. He uffed off to who knows where. Lance leans across the bar, blindly searching below it. Numb fingers groping until he feels a familiar box. Pulls it out and settles back on his stool. It fits in the palm of his hand. Small. Metal. Non-assuming. Seam running around it but no visible way of opening the lid. There's a fingerprint scanner on the top and a slit on one of the sides. Makes sure only the right people can dispense the product. He sets the box down, lazily flicking it back and forth across the smooth surface of the bar with a couple fingers. Nails of his other hand idly tapping against the glass neck of his bottle. His eyes drift upward, gaze dragging over the room as his mind swims, sluggishly trying to keep up. There's a clock on the wall. Bright and neon green. Still an hour or two from dawn. There are people passed out around him, but the party isn't over yet. It's 4 in the morning, and he's just trying to fix himself. Trying to keep himself from unraveling. Trying to keep the cracked pieces of himself from shattering like glass across the floor. What the hell should he do? He can't break. He's the life of the party. He puts his thumb to the scanner atop the metal box. Not quite remembering when he looked away from the clock. The scanner comes to life. A line of light reading his print up and down. It flashes green, once, before the scanner goes dim. A thin sheet is dispensed from the slit on the side. He takes it. An inch square. Thin enough to be translucent. Appearing fragile and yet strangely durable. Almost the texture of gelatin. Red. Pidge calls this mix berry bonanza. He once asked what berries. She asked him if it even mattered. He takes a long pull from his bottle. Smooth against his numb lips. A burn at the back of his throat. An ache where he swallows. He slams the bottle down, wiping a trickle of liquid from his chin with the back of his hand. Then he places the hit of Quint on his tongue. Sits there and revels in the berry bonanza as it starts to dissolve. Hums softly to himself, focused more on the vibrations than the phantom melody that drifts through his hazy mind in fractured bursts. He holds the bottle between his hands, focused on the smoothness beneath his fingertips. Lets himself cling to the sensation. Afraid that if he doesn't, he'll shatter. He can't lose himself. He's the life of the party.
He wants to say he doesn't know how he got here, but the truth remains that he does. Crouched over some Gora thug, not even a ranking officer of their gang, just some street kid, some grunt, some pusher, not even a dealer, but some low-grade idiot paid to run the quint between sellers. The kid cries out as Lance digs his knee in further, feeling the notches of his spine, pushing him into the cracked concrete. It's probably more out of shock and frustration than pain. He's here to make a point, scare him off the expanding blade territory, not hurt the kid. He's probably not that much younger than Lance, but he looks it. Has an air of youth and an inexperience that ages him down. Doesn't have any of the rough edges Lance is used to. He holds one of the kid's hands behind his back, just above where his knee digs into his spine, wrist twisted at an uncomfortable angle. The kid's other hand is curled into a fist on the concrete, knuckles bruised and cracked. As Lance starts digging through his pockets with his free hand, he can feel the body beneath him relax, feels the fight leak out of him and dissolve into the night. What's he gonna do against a paladin? Lance caught him off guard, running through territory he shouldn't be in. Disarmed him, kicked his ass for a good measure. Has his face pinned to the asphalt. Kid's lucky Lance is merciful. Lucky he's not on paladin territory. Lucky Lance isn't here for him. But what he's carrying? Lance hums as he finds what he's looking for. Feels the faux leather pouch. There you are. He pulls it out, holding it up to watch the flickering neon light play off the worn and fading plastic leather. He lets go of Kid's wrist, but keeps his knee pressed into his back as he snaps the pouch open. Opens up the accordion folds to peer inside. Each fold holds a vacuum-sealed plastic bag, keeping the precious contents from getting wet from the near-constant drizzle that falls over the city. Each one filled with little circles of quint sheets, all of them a sickly yellow. Looks like I caught you at the start of your rounds. Got a full load there. He snaps the pouch shut, tugging it into the inner pocket of his jacket before leaning down. The kid winces as Lance's knee digs in deeper, flinches as Lance roughly pats his cheek. He chuckles darkly. Better luck next time. I suggest leaving the Empire before they take this loss out of your hide. Heard the blade can be mighty generous to Empire defects. Better than you'll get anywhere else. He stands down, stepping back, straightening his jacket and rolling his neck until it cracks. This kid scrambles to his feet, whipping around to face him, eyes narrowed in caution, expression of worry as he eases away. Lance shifts his jacket, showing off the gun holster strapped to his side. The kid's eyes dart to it quickly. Lance sharply jerks his head to the side. Get out of here before I lose my patience. The kid runs, footsteps fading into the night, into the buzz and crackle of advertisements around them, into the rush of harbor traffic above. Lance waits until he's gone before turning, striding confidently back to his bike, but as he swings his leg over good old Blue and settles onto her familiar seat, the pleasant tingle of the fight wears off, sours into something cold and leaden in his gut. Cause as much as he loved to deny it, he knows why he's here. Knows it wasn't a coincidence that he had caught a gutter runner. He spent damn near 2 hours waiting in the drizzling rain, shivering from more than just cold, waiting on a route he'd known the gutter grunt would take. Because Pidge has cut him off from their own quint supply. Says he's using too much. Says he has a problem. She doesn't understand. Knows he has a problem. One giant key-shaped problem and one giant key-shaped hole in his chest. He's just trying to fix himself. Needs to get it fixed for himself. He pulls out the pouch, snaps it open, and pulls out one of the sealed plastic bags. Holds it up to the light. Watches the pink and purple lights shine through the murky yellow of the quint. He knows it'll tastes like piss. At this point, he doesn't care. He's trapped, caught, stuck, somewhere between who he used to be and who he'll be tomorrow, and when the quint hits his tongue and the champagne blows his mind. Pidge thinks he's addicted to Quint, but she's wrong. He's addicted to the thrill of it all. Always has been. The thrill of some gutter kid getting into the garrison. The thrill of a firecracker romance. The thrill of dropping back down to the lower streets. The thrill of being a paladin. The thrill of the fight, the drugs, the life. The thrill of Keith, wild and chaotic. The wildfire that swept through his veins and left his chest charred. He was addicted to Keith, and now he's gone. Now he needs a new addiction, a new thrill. Something, anything, to make him feel alive again, to make him feel something, to cut through the numbness and the pain that pulsed in alternating waves, catching his heart on his ribs and shredding it to pieces. But thrills don't come for free. He's learned that much. The price you gotta pay for dreams, for illusions, for moments, no matter how fake, where things feel okay, is the price he pays to be the life of the party.
The bass pulses through him, drowning out his own heartbeat. Replacing it. Pulling his strings as the music sings through his veins. Rhythm pulling at his body. He's a slave to it. He closes his eyes because it's all become too much. The blur of the flashing strobe lights. The writhing of the bodies around him. His vision drags, and his mind swims. So he keeps his eyes shut. Ignores it all. Shuts it away. Focuses on the music. On the pleasant buzz of alcohol that swims in his veins. On the tingle of numbness biting at his limbs and the lingering sour taste of Galra Quint on his tongue. It shouldn't matter that Keith isn't here anymore. He spent more days in this life without Keith than with him. Spent more nights in this club, more nights as a paladin, while he was riding solo. Then Keith comes crashing back into his life, carves himself out a niche in Lance's chest, and then blows right the F back out of town. Leaving him alone. Again. He should be used to it, but he's not. He should be numb to it, but he's not. He shouldn't care, but he does. He should be able to forget Keith, but he can't. Before Keith, he was the life of the party. Always at the center of it all. Known amongst their clientele. Known on the streets. Even among his friends, he was the life of the party. Now Keith's gone, and Lance feels like he's losing his balance. Swirling away from the center of this life and losing himself in the outer reaches of this chaos. Losing himself to an ever-expanding void. No longer tethered as he had once been. No longer grounded in himself. He used to be so sure of who he is. Used to know exactly what he wanted. Now he's not so sure. Keith left him shaken. Tether severed. Ground shattered beneath him. Alone and drifting. He used to be the life of the party, but who the F is he now? Somewhere in between who he used to be who he'll be tomorrow. In a sea of strangers, he can't find himself anymore.
He sits high on a ledge, one of Keith's favorite perches. A newer building with older architecture. Lets one foot dangle while the other props up on the edge, knee bent. He leans back, one arm hooked over his knee, joints hanging from between his fingers, smoke trailing up to dissipate into the city haze. His other hand rests on the stone beside him, inches from unopened bottle. He swipes it from the club. He hasn't opened it yet. Feels the need to like an ache. Feels his throat parch for a drink. But it doesn't feel right. Feels like a hollow act, a habit, a cycle. The buzz no longer feels good. The thrill is no longer enough. Nothing is enough. He tilts his head back against the concrete, isolated as he stares up at the passing hover traffic. Fancier hovercrafts up here, where the richer live. Here on the cusp of the higher and lower city. His eyes watch, but his mind is distant. He keeps thinking about Keith, how he levels him out sometimes, when he's out of his head and he doesn't want to face it. He could use a dose of that right about now, another hit of whatever it is about Keith that makes him so addicting, another fix of whatever has him burrowed so deep in Lance's chest. He lifts his hand, abandoning the bottle, and lifts his arm high, letting his sleeve drop to reveal his wristband, propping the joint between his lips. He opens up the holoscreen, flips through his messages to the familiar contact, the haunted name. Hits call, watches it ring, feels the tension widening tight in his chest, watches the line, and abruptly, "Oft!" He hit his teeth, letting his hand drop, gripping the stone, knuckles white as he runs the fingers of his other hand through his hair, pulling on his roots. "Oft!" He grabs the bottle and hurls it over the city, watches it sail through the haze, watches the flashing neon lights catch on the glass as it falls, watches it disappear into the darkness below. He can't see it, can't hear it, but he swears he can feel it shatter. He squeezes his eyes shut, taking a long drag before pulling the joint from his lips, holds it until it burns before letting out the breath, cracks his eyes to watch smoke rise and fade into the smog. Keith's been ignoring his calls lately. He's not an idiot. He's not just missing them. He's canceling them. He's not responding to messages. He doesn't call back. The whole game of pretend, the whole stay in touch thing, it worked for a while. A couple weeks. But it was only ever an illusion, a false hope, a lie they both desperately clung to. Two addicts, unwilling to give it up. But it seems like he's done just that. Giving up whatever they had between them. The last time Lance had gotten a hold of him, he had asked why Keith had been so dodgy lately. He'd confronted him about it, but he only got since in reply, silence and aside, and whispered, "It's all for a reason." Well, what the is a reason now? When the joint is nothing but ash, he climbs down from his perch, heads back to the club. He's life of the party.
He stands on the balcony high above the dance floor below. On the paladin level of Voltron. He leans against the railing, hunched over with his forearms resting atop it. Hands clasped in front of him. He gazes out over the sea of strangers down below him. Writhing and colliding, shifting and swirling. He used to crave being down there. Used to love losing himself in that ocean of chaos. Now he can't find himself anymore. Maybe because he's looking for who he used to be, and he's not quite sure who he'll be tomorrow. He's not sober. Can't quite handle being completely clean when the shadows of the night press in on him and the neon lights illuminate the hollow in his chest. But he's not gone either. Just a light buzz. Just a few hits of the calming mix Corins come up with. Not enough to drag his vision, but enough to make his thoughts wander. To make him feel light and floating above the swirling sea below. All those years ago. When he, Hunk, and Pidge stumbled across Allura in the lower city. When they got caught up in the turf war. When Allura offered them a chance to make real change, and they all decided to leave the garrison to join her. It's so hard to imagine who he'd be if he had walked away. If he had gone back to the garrison. If he had fulfilled his childhood dreams. Never know what it's like to be the life of the party. But here's the thing. He's not sure if he wants to be the life of the party anymore. It's been fun. It's been great. He felt like he finally found a place where he belonged. And then Keith came back, and Lance changed again. He didn't notice it at first. Small things. A small shift in how he thinks. In what he wants. He used to know exactly what he wanted, where he needed to be, what needed to be done. Now he's not so sure. He's trapped somewhere in between who he used to be and who he'll be tomorrow. At a crossroads. He can either fix himself up. Go back to how things have been for years. Who he used to be. Who he knows he can be. The life of the party. Or he can let himself crack. Let himself figure out what version of himself is struggling to break through that mask. Through the cocoon. Doesn't know what he'll find. Doesn't know if it's worth it. But, he wants to find out. Wants to see who he'll be tomorrow. He can't find himself anymore, but he's starting to realize that's because he's not in the places he used to be. He's changed, and he hasn't wanted to face it. Because it's the unknown. Uncertain. But, he thinks he might be ready to face it. Keith isn't with him anymore, but he still lingers in his heart. In a crevice he carved out for himself in Lance's chest. Lance can feel it beating. Aching. Pulsing. Calling out for him in silent pleas. He doesn't know if it's Keith's voice or his own. Doesn't think it matters. He can't find himself anymore, but he thinks he knows where to look.
It's 4 in the morning, and he's trying to fix himself. He weeps through the bodies crowding up the Paladin's lounge, swaying with drink and who knows what else. Laughter and voices fading to the pulse of the club's heartbeat. There's no bottle in his hands. They're shoved into his pockets, curled into fists to keep from picking at his nails. The only buzz in his veins is that of anxious energy. The thrill of potential, of excitement. Strong, taut, with the quivering tension of anticipation. The song of hope humming through his chest. It's the thrill of action, when the decision is made and being put into motion. Energy pulling and colliding as it gathers with no outlet. He steps up onto the dais at the center of the lounge, nods to the security guards keeping watch, collapses onto an empty couch, crossing one leg over the other and stretching his arms out along the back of it. His friends look at him then. Allura, the princess, curled up in an elaborate and comfortable armchair. Pidge, the green paladin, curled cross-legged in the corner of the couch across from him, a tablet on her lap. Hunk, the yellow paladin, sitting next to her, talking about whatever's on her screen, a drink cradle in his fingers, and his arms slung over his girlfriend's shoulders. Shay, the rock. Matt, the rebel, stretched out in the armchair across from Allura. They all stare at him. He stares back, making eye contact with each one of them before speaking. I'm going to find Keith. It's not a question. It's said with absolute confidence. His decision is already made. It's hard to imagine who it'd be if he let Keith walk away. He doesn't want to see that version of himself. He wants to know who he'll be tomorrow. He wants to see the version of himself who doesn't let the man he loves get away. We know who you are, buddy. Hunk's grin is wide, Shay's smile echoing it. His groans, head rolling back. Oh my god, finally! We figured you would, Matt says, smile not unkind. We were just waiting to see how long it would take. We took bets. Pidge's eyes are back on her tablet, fingers moving quickly. Lance lifts a brow. Somehow, he's not surprised. Who won? I did. As I did, Pidge, Allura says, smile warm as she unfurls in the armchair. She sits up straighter, legs crossed under her, arms resting on her knees. There's a harder glint to her eyes as her smile fades, one that he's come to associate with business, one that speeds up his pulse and burns in his blood with the promise of action. Unfortunately, I cannot go with you. I need to remain here and keep control of our territory, but I'll do anything I can to help. We'll keep the streets cleared while you're gone. Matt gives him a thumbs up and a cheeky grin before lifting a joint to his lips. Hunk leans forward, setting his glass on the table at the center of their seats. And Pidge and I are coming with you. Lance blinks, frown pursing his lips. You don't have to do that. There's a lot to take care of here. I don't expect you to go running off with me after my baggage. Oh, shut it, Pidge says, leaning forward and holding his gaze, fierce fire burning behind her irises, catching on the blue glow of the Paladin lounge, turning the flames to ice. We were in the garrison together, became Paladins together. We're not gonna let you running off into who the f knows what without us. We're going with you. End of story. She leans back once more, adjusting her glasses. Besides, Keith's our friend too. Hunk nods. You haven't heard from him in a while, and that means he's run into trouble. Lance can't help the momentary ache in his chest. The frown he passes to keep his voice from shaking as he says, uncharacteristically soft, how do you know he just doesn't want to talk to me anymore? There's a chorus of scuffs, a series of rolled eyes. Lance, it's clear to all of us that Keith is absolutely enamored with you, Allura says, exasperation and amusement wearing her voice. He followed you to the ends of the earth, and we know you do the same for him. Hunk kicks his feet up, propping them up on the table. But you're both idiots. We can't let you do it alone. Lance feels his grin aching in his cheeks before he even registers the stretch of his lips. There's a burn behind his eyes, a bubbling in his chest, a warmth that starts to fill that numb hollow. You guys are the best. We know, Hunk says. Obviously, Allura says. I don't know where he went, Lance says, leaning forward. He rests his elbows on his knees, fingers weaving together, cracking his knuckles. He wouldn't tell me. Probably thought I followed him. Paige goes, like that would stop you. Lance grins sharpness at the edges, lopsided, wicked and catching his eyes. But the Blades probably know. They're the ones who gave him the info on Shiro to begin with. Shiro? Matt sits up straight, brow furrowing. Lance blinks, turning to frown at Matt. Yeah? He's the one that Keith's been looking for. That's why he left the garrison and joined the Blades. They got the new info for him, and he left. He shakes his head, feeling familiar regret sour in his gut. I couldn't stop him, not when I know how important Shiro is to him. But I wish I had gone with him. There's a hand on his arm, warm and comforting. He turns to find Allura next to him, shifted to the couch from her chair. She smiles, and he feels her confidence like a balm. It's okay, Lance. You'll bring him back. I had no idea, Matt says, shaking his head, lips pursed to a frown. Shiro's the one who got me and Dad out. We were all kidnapped together, held prisoner. No isht. Shiro got us out, but at the cost of his own life. At least we thought so. Is still alive? Lance nods. According to key sources, yeah. Wait, Hunk says, eyes narrow as the gears behind them turn. You said it was the Garo who kidnapped you all those years ago. Man nods. Yeah. So, the Empire are the ones who've had Shiro all this time? Yeah, sounds like it. Frick. Lance's curled fist comes down his knee, teeth clench as his jaw tightens. He's been under our nose this whole time? No, they got him somewhere else. Everyone turns to Paige, but it's Lance who speaks. How'd you know that? Because I put the tracker on Keith's bike before he left. At Lance's open-mouthed stare, she rolls her eyes. I wasn't going to tell you I knew where he was until you decided you wanted to know. You needed to figure out what you wanted. He feels like he should be annoyed. Feels like he should be mad she didn't tell him. Instead, he finds himself smiling, small and genuine, a warmth blooming in his chest. Thanks, Pidge. She seems just as startled as he feels. Still, she brushes past it, shakes her head and moves on. She puts her tablet on the table, tapping a few things until it throws up a holographic display. Anyway, point is, I've been keeping an eye on this tracker, and he's been well outside the city. It seems the Empire influence expands a lot further than we thought. The display is a map, a zoom-out map of their area. Their own city is on one side, and it encompasses several of the cities around them, as well as the waste, the dark lands. Lance's eyes fixate on one city in particular, on a blinking red dot. Feels his heart race, then his pulse flutter in his veins. Feels a lump in his throat, making the air hiss out of his lungs when his chest squeezes. Keith.
Blue rumbles beneath him. A steady purr that vibrates through his bones. A bass line to the drum beat of his heart. She hovers just inches above the ground. Engines on but not fully elevated yet. He straddles the seat, leaning back as he slides his sleeve back down over his wristband. He'd tried one last call to Keith. No answer, as anticipated. Doesn't matter. He's going to find him anyway. I'm sending Keith's tracking info to your comms, Pidge says from where she's perched on her own hover bike. Much like Blue, but with green accents. Smaller, with some different gadgets attached. You should be able to pull up the coordinates on your goggles. Thanks, Pigeon, Lance says, reaching for the goggles perched atop his head and pulling them down over his eyes. Settles the worn leather padding against his skin. The lenses crackle to life, doing a quick scan of his eyes to adjust. With a few minuscule movements, he shuffles through the commands to pull up the map and place it in the upper left corner of his left lens. The route is already marked. Not only will the goggles protect their eyes on the long, open drive, but they're also fitted with night vision tech, which will come in handy once they're out of the city limits and in the dark wastes. He adjusts his gloves, flexing his fingers before he makes sure his jacket is zipped up against the biting chill. Everyone fueled up. Check, Hunk echoes. Pidge, got all the ish you need? Check. We've got funds. Check. Thanks, Allura. No problem. You can always call me to wire you more. We got the supplies? All packed. Check. Corin announces, snapping to attention as he wraps a knuckle on the metal cargo hold of Hunk's larger bike. There should be enough food and water to last you several weeks, as well as some things I thought might come in handy. Thanks, Corin. Lance turns to where Matt and Allura stand between his and Pidge's bikes. You guys sure you'll be okay? No one will dare to touch us, per usual. Matt leans away from hugging his sister, shooting a lopsided grin toward Lance. They won't even know you're gone for at least a week or two. Even then, we have the Blades backing us up now. You just focus on bringing our boys home. Both of them. He gives Lance a little mock salute that Lance mirrors. You got it. Be careful out there, Lance. Allura rests a hand on his leg, smile hedged with worry. She lowers her voice, private between them. Take care of the others. They'll look to you for guidance. They trust you. You're running this mission. I know, he says, putting his hand over hers and squeezing lightly. I'll take care of them. I'll bring us all home. She smiles, full of pride and trust. He can't help the playful curve of his lips. The teasing, how about a kiss for good luck, princess? She rolls her eyes, smile still on her lips as she slaps his leg and steps away. Go get one from your prince. He laughs, reaching to the bundle of tight cloth around his neck to pull the fabric up over the lower half of his face, to protect it from the wind. Gladly. He leans forward, fingers wrapping around the handles and revving his engine. Everyone ready? Roger. Let's go. Lance kicks his bike up first, taking to the air before sending it a burst of gas that has him rocketing forward. Hears the roar of Pidge and Hunk behind him. Leads the charge as he takes off down the city streets. Headed north. Out of the central city, through the slums, and past the motorway. Past the outskirts. Into the wastes. He heads into the uncertain darkness. Leaving the glow of the only city he's ever known behind. Away from who he used to be. Toward who he'll be tomorrow. It's 4 in the morning, and he's determined to fix himself. Determined to find the piece of himself that he's been missing. He's done being the life of the party.